Ladies and gentlemen, today we've just gotten a hold of some brand new polling data, and I'll tell you what, somehow things just got even worse for the Democrats. As you all know, for months now, the Democrats have been struggling with catastrophically low approval ratings. They've been absolutely bleeding support nationwide. Really, there's been a mass exodus away from the Democratic Party across the entire country. But so, like I said, for the Democrats, things just got even worse. Take a look.
Yeah, you would think after all of the waves, Kate Baldwin, after the last few months, the first 5 months of the Donald Trump presidency, right, the first 4 months of the Donald Trump presidency, that you expect that Democrats would have this massive lead on the economy. It ain't so. It ain't so. The party that is closest to your economic views, in November of 2023, it was the Republicans by 11 points. Now it's still within that range, still within that margin of error. Plus 8-point advantage for the Republican Party. How is that possible, Democrats? How is that possible after all the recession fears, after the stock market's been doing all of this, after all the tariffs that Americans are against, and Republicans still hold an 8-point lead on the economy? Are you kidding me?
So, folks, did you catch all of that? After all of the Democrats' nonstop fear-mongering, after all of the Democrats' anti-Trump propaganda, the vast majority of Americans nationwide still believe that President Trump's economic policies are what's best for the country. And you know why? Because all of us Americans can see what his policies are doing every day. They are working. But you know what? If you thought that was bad news for the Democrats, I've got another thing I want you guys to see. But first, I do want to say real quick that if you all enjoy the daily news updates, please consider subscribing to the channel because it really does help a ton. But okay, check this out.
Historically speaking, which is the party of the middle class has been a huge advantage for Democrats. I have polling from NBC going all the way back since 1989 when Democrats had a 23-point advantage. 2016, a 17-point advantage. But by this decade, we already started seeing declines back in 2022 where you saw that Democrats led, but only by 4 points, well within the margin of error. And now in our latest CNN poll among registered voters, which is the party of the middle class, it is tied. This, I think, speaks to Democratic ills more than anything else. They have traditionally been the party of the middle class. No more. Donald Trump and the Republican Party have taken that mantle away, and now a key advantage for Democrats historically has gone adios amigos, and now there is no party that is the party of the middle class. Republicans have completely closed the gap, Kate.
Ladies and gentlemen, that is game over for the Democrats. For decades now, the primary selling point of the Democratic Party is that they've been viewed as the party of the working class. But now, between President Trump's America First agenda and the Democrats' own ineptitude, they've managed to lose the one thing that they still had going for them. But you know what? We're not even done yet because somehow it gets even worse for the Democrats. Take a look.
A longtime member of the Kentucky General Assembly switching to the Republican Party, marking an end to all Democrat representation in rural Kentucky. It's a major blow to state Democrats who usually held a stronghold in rural areas. And Democrat Governor Andy Beshear, often listed as a potential future White House candidate, too. That former Democrat turned Republican, Kentucky State Senator Robin Webb, joins us now. So great to see you. Senator, so you've been a Democrat for all your life. This is a big deal for you to switch. I know that Democrats in the rural part of Virginia, where I'm from, it's a really big deal for them. What was the last straw for you?
Well, first, a correction. I first registered Republican when I was young, and when I went into coal mining as an occupation, that's when I registered Democrat. So that's a slight correction. But so really, I'm coming back. But it wasn't really a last straw per se. This has been a culmination of several policy shifts through the past few years, and how the rural voice. You know, I've been tried to be the rural voice, but it's just gone not unheard, but certainly not acknowledged and not given the credence that I would think our people need.
And so, ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. Things have gotten so bad for the Democrats that not only have they lost almost all support amongst American voters, but now they're also losing their own politicians. And why? Because everyday hardworking Americans aren't being treated properly by the Democratic Party, and because they've also adopted so many radically progressive, insane policies. You know, you could maybe make a reasonable argument that the Democrats in the 1990s were a reasonably well adjusted political party. They maybe had some reasonable points. But these days, not only do they not represent hardworking Americans, they're also completely insane as well. But really, perhaps the biggest single problem for the Democratic Party right now is that not even young Americans are on their side. And as you all know, historically speaking, young Americans have been one of the Democratic Party's largest strongholds. And so, this massive problem is why the Democrats are planning a $20 million initiative to target young men specifically, trying to get them back on the side of progressivism. The problem, however, is that they've hired probably the worst person alive to lead this initiative. Take a look.
Well, I also think it's just so abundantly clear that the people who say these things don't actually spend time talking to young men. You know this because we know each other in real life, but I spend a lot of time on college campuses, and I
He
spend a lot of time with
loves young men.
I love young men. I love frat guys, and in that I realized like even the ones that identify as conservative are almost always pro-choice. They're almost always pro-gay marriage. You'd be surprised at the number of them who supported Black Lives Matter. And so I feel like people just kind of lump them into this box when the truth is, again, a lot of them are with us on the issues. They're just not part of our coalition because they feel like they're not welcomed in it.
So, yeah, ladies and gentlemen, all of that is their master plan. They're actually deluded enough to think that young American men already agree with the entire progressive platform, but the problem is that young men don't feel welcomed and embraced enough by the Democratic Party. Listen, folks, let's just be honest here for a moment, and by the way, I apologize if I'm about to sound a little bit rude. We all know how young men are. Young men are not looking to be emotionally coddled by a morbidly obese, radically progressive woman who represents the Democratic Party. If you want to appeal to young men, you need to have some badass guy like Hulk Hogan try to reach out to them, but that's never going to happen because badass guys aren't Democrats. And that's on top of the fact that her initial presumption is just totally wrong. Young men most certainly do not agree with the modern progressive platform. I'm sorry, but that is just not the case. In fact, to the contrary, all the data we currently have shows the exact opposite. This generation of young men are perhaps the most conservative, most traditional, maybe even the most regressive men that we've had in a very long time. And hey, I'm 31, so maybe I'm even a little bit too old to be included in this conversation, but you know what? I'm right there with them. And so, folks, all of that ties into what I want to show you next. Take a look.
Donald Trump's approval rating, according to a Rasmussen poll. 51% of Americans approve of the job Donald Trump is doing. And we like this poll. We looked at it. More than 1,000 registered voters from both parties. This is a real poll. This is a good poll. But the New York Times claimed that the only way Donald Trump could possibly have a good approval rating is because people aren't paying attention to what he's doing.
Ladies and gentlemen, you heard that correctly. 5 months into his presidency, Donald Trump has a whopping 51% national approval rating. And as you saw, the left-wing media has absolutely no idea how to spin it. They're actually trying to make the claim that the only reason President Trump's approval ratings are so high is because Americans across the country just aren't paying attention, whatever that means. In reality, the reason why President Trump's approval ratings are so high is because Americans are paying attention. Very close attention, in fact. We're all watching day by day as President Trump digs this country out of the mess that the Democrats got us into, and we're all sitting on the sidelines cheering him on. So you know what, folks? Based on everything we've just talked about today, it is abundantly obvious that the Democrats really just have absolutely no idea what they're doing. They're screwed, they have no plan, but even worse, they don't even have a competent leader. But you know what? Personally, I'm not too worried about it, because as their entire party continues to implode, we're all over here putting America first. Now, ladies and gentlemen, before we wrap up, I do want to say real quick that we officially have a Morse News Twitter page as well as a Morse News Facebook page. So if you use either of those platforms, please go down below and drop a follow in order to get breaking news updates that relate to everything we talk about here in the YouTube videos. But everyone, that is going to be a wrap for today's video, so please go down below and drop a comment. Let me know what you think about all of this. Please like the video while you're down there, and like I said earlier, please consider subscribing to the channel because it really does help a ton. Thank you all very much for tuning in today, and of course, as always, stay safe.